Hey, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session of the Germinator. My name is Alon Eisenstein. I'm an associate professor of teaching in technology entrepreneurship at the School of Engineering on UBCO campus in the city of Kelowna. Today, I have the pleasure of having a conversation with a dear old friend, Calvin Cheng. Before I introduce Calvin, I do want to just briefly share two things. First, I would like to first acknowledge that I'm on the UBCO campus, which is situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan people. And part of recognizing and acknowledging their knowledge and the wisdom of Indigenous people, I like to share things that are topically relevant to these type of meetings and conversations I have with my guests. Calvin has been throughout his career involved in material-based science and innovation and thinking about how Indigenous people have implemented Indigenous design with understanding of material property and structural design property. The people of the Okanagan and also neighboring Indigenous communities have long lived in the winter, in winter months in what is known as pit houses, also known as kekuli or kuchi, and the ingenious design of the winter home allowed them to be so well thermally insulated that by the account of an elder from the Syilx nation, once said that you only needed to light the fire twice, once in the morning for cooking breakfast and once in the evening to cooking dinner. The rest of the day, you didn't need to have a fire lit. The design was so well thought of and improved over generations that it kept the temperature nice and warm throughout the day and throughout the night without needing to have a continuous flame lit inside the pit house. So I thought that's a very clever way of showing, again, how wise and knowledgeable the indigenous design principles of our host nations were. Um, I'm also wanting to give a bit of a explainer for the Germinator for those of you who are joining for the first time. The purpose of the Germinator is to have conversations with people such as Dr. Calvin Cheng about how innovation becomes reality, how startup become a scale up, how things go from an idea or technology to real world application and into physical hands of customers and users. And this is a place that I love to hear people about the things that they did, the things that they didn't, the challenges, and the things that usually get not get told and celebrated because they're the hard work that takes place behind the scenes. Um, so with that, Calvin is a dear old friend. We've known each other for um, well over a decade, probably a decade and a half, getting close to a decade and a half at this point. Um, he is a deep tech venture builder, and he is currently the director of application and customer success at Lumotive, a leading company in LiDAR. And he is an accomplished entrepreneur, has been a technology executive in startups before, and has all these experiences of advanced materials, specifically in photonic innovation. He was the co-founder and former CTO, CO of Edgehog Advanced Technologies when he was on the East Coast of Canada, securing multi-million-dollar funding and creating manufacturing capacity to scale production of material-based products. He has a PhD in material chemistry from the University of Toronto, which is where I did my PhD, and we've shared a research lab for many years. He has a Bachelor of Applied Science in Biomedical Engineering, also from the University of Toronto, and has a, or is it? It is Toronto, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And over a decade of leadership in science, in engineering, in business, in outreach and communication, as amongst many other things, and has lots of great insight about deep technology commercialization. So I will stop share my screen and put my light on Calvin as well. So I'm going to add uh, pin here and add pin here. There we go. So I think now everybody should be able to see both of us at the same time. Calvin, welcome again, because I think this is the second time I'm having you on a Zoom call and asking you about your life experience. So thank you again for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to our discussions.
So last time when we met, which is 4 years ago, I think, on Zoom, in this context anyway, I think you were still with Edgehog,
Yes,
and now you're with Lumotive. Is that how you say
yes,
it, Lumotive?
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And I think to me, and the reason I love talking to you so much and learning from your experience is because at this point you can nearly say you've done it all. You've started with basic science, you've done a startup that you started up yourself, you build it up, and now you're working in a scale up. And so the next time I'm talking to you, you'll be a multi-billionaire that managing a global consortium of companies, right? So before we get there, uh, um, can tell people around beyond what I just shared with the bio, which was shared on the website, um, your 2 minute trajectory from you're doing your undergrad in engineering, your PhD in material and chemistry, and then where you are today. So what are the main stepping stones that that took you from research lab to where you are today?
Yeah, thanks for that context. So, how I think of making a difference is how do we apply fundamental research and make that into usable societal impact within our lifetime. So that's how I think of my entire career is how do we connect the dot from a prototype that only one graduate student can run versus something that is deployed out in the field, used by many people for all sorts of applications. So I first came to this journey through a volunteer opportunity with Pueblo Science, where we were doing hands-on science education all over the world, but in particular, I was first involved in the Philippines, and just seeing how using everyday materials like a wire, magnet, and battery, we can make a motor out of it, and how the teachers really grasp onto those ideas right away and to inspire children using very hands-on, very simple work. So that got me to understand how we all have that capacity to figure out how to use our knowledge to make an impact. Ever since then, I've worked on a couple of things. With Cyventions, as a co-founder, we worked on creating the link between academic researchers and product people all over the world. So typically, you need to form collaborations to get access to early stage innovations in research labs. So the platform is to then take those innovations, put it available online, productize those prototypes, and then sell it globally. I've also started Edgehog, licensing optics nanofabrication technology from Brookhaven National Lab in New York, and to basically take this invisible glass idea and apply it to all sorts of things. So that includes for solar modules, for satellites, for camera sensors, etc. And that's what's brought me to Lumotive, is that combination of semiconductor experience with optics experience. That is where Lumotive is doing now, taking a semiconductor chip that can steer light without any mechanical moving parts. And we're choosing to use that to implement for LiDAR applications. And I've mentioned quite a few fields throughout my career, and I think that's to me, the most important thing is to be versatile in how we apply change. I started with biomedical engineering, moved to chemistry in terms of biological systems, and then to nanomaterials, and then to plasma physics, and then to optics as well. So just keeping an open mind and learning as we go and finding the opportunities where we can make a difference.
Amazing. And the other thing that the thread that I was kind of paying attention to, and I know you well, so I knew that anyway, that to expect, but you kind of said it in not so many words, is this idea of doing the one-off, right? The prototyping, the thing that you're doing on your own that you get one of, and then kind of gradually leading to a place where you can actually make it at scale, that it actually benefits many, many people. Um,
Yeah.
Now, when I teach entrepreneurship, especially, for people from technical backgrounds, specifically, for myself in engineering, I like to tell people that there's two types of mindset. There's the engineer project mindset. There's a start and finish, and you do what you do within it. And then there's the indefinite venture mindset, which is build it and grow until, it thrives or dies, either way, right? Um, and I noticed that theme comes up in the way you kind of walk us through your career trajectory. So I wonder, um, what are some of the things that you learned along the way that kind of thinking back about your bachelor's, your PhD, your academic experience, and how the world of industry, which is built on a mass production, on scaling, on growing, what are the biggest things that you kind of learned that that the average listener right now in academia doesn't know? They should know, but they don't.
Yeah, I think the first thing is speed to market ultimately is everything, is how we execute, the quality of execution. But if it takes 10 years, then it's not going to be successful. Other products launch, run out of funding, whatever that may be. So in academia, oftentimes we're encouraged to become the key expert in that particular field. So it took quite a lot of time and effort to develop that expertise and to perform research, all worthwhile endeavors. In the scale up context, it's never how can I figure it out? It is how can we accomplish it the fastest? And more often than not, the answer is for someone else to do it. Whether it is within the company identifying the right resource to do so, as a founder or any context in the position, is finding who has the technical expertise, who has the industry knowledge to pull it off. Other times is finding partners or even contractors to do the work for us. A good example of that is with Lumotive, for example. We're making chips. We're making the semiconductor chip that steers light. We can build LiDAR. We do build LiDAR systems, and we can productize that ourselves and sell LiDAR. But our core expertise is in semiconductor chip manufacturing. If we try to become the expert in manufacturing as well, we can, but then that's spreading ourselves too thin. So instead, we're partnering with module manufacturers to sell the chip to them, to grant them the knowledge on how to build LiDAR system based on our chip, and then to leverage their expertise and their manufacturing supply chain to build products much faster than we could alone, and to build that diversification of different products. So to me, it's not so much how we can solve the problem, it is how can we solve whatever milestone it is as quickly as we can with the resource available.
Okay. So it's always doing it with the eye to and what's next? Like, are we getting ourselves ready for what's next instead of just going deep, deep, deep? Because we want to go deep. It's not about going deep. It's about building the next jump forward.
I think so, and as a lot of scientists and engineers build tech-related companies, more often than not, there's some sort of technical advantage. There's some sort of uniqueness to it. So we of course want to protect the IP, and the easiest way to protect IP is to do everything ourselves. And that's the part that becomes tricky, is that as a small company with very few resources, it's impractical. So how do we protect our know-how and still enable our partners, the customers, to succeed? And I think that's where the strategic partnerships that comes in. So a lot of engineers are trained to become great engineers. A lot of business folks are trained to be great business. And the overlap, I think that's the part that's missing as well. So a lot of tech founders get that hands-on training for technical folks to become business minded and vice versa. So I think one of the uniqueness is when we have a engineering project, what are the business steps? What are the monetization incentives for all the different partners to want to participate in this? And once we get those incentives aligned, and once the IP part is aligned, once the commercial interests are aligned, then we can all work together to make it go faster.
Yeah, could not agree more. I guess the challenge though is how do you learn how to do that? Which in your case, yes, many years of experience.
Uh, my theory is mentorship.
Okay.
So the way I think of mentors is at every stage of our learning, we have new things that we need to learn. When I first stepped up into an executive role, how do I enable the board to get what information they need? How do I get a CEO in the visibility to give strategic input? So then I look for a mentor that happens to have that skill set. 2 years later, I've learned a ton from that. I have new things to learn about, like how to navigate different market dynamics, etc. So at every stage of our business, we need input from different sources. So mentor relationships, the personal relationship will last a long time, but the learnings for me is for different for each stage of our career. So my thoughts, and I think part of how I've learned is through incubation programs in the beginning, for example, just identifying mentors that I resonate with and seeking them out and asking specifically for mentorship on particular topics. And then as I move on to different needs, then to seek out new mentors for those topics as well. And I think everyone can benefit from a series of mentors as we progress through our careers.
So true. And we have a mentorship program on UBCO campus, so I'm super excited to talk to you about that on another day. I do want to pause and see if anybody has any burning question or curious minds from what they've heard from you about you so far. I know some people here tend to have questions. See none? Okay, so I get to continue. Um, so, Calvin, you went from being a scientist, PhD, right? And then turned entrepreneur, creating Edgehog. There's the inventions in between that was kind of overlapping with the PhD mostly. And then you grew Edgehog, you raised lots of millions of dollars, you built a small team, the team grew, you know, we were catching up occasionally on what you're doing there. Um, and now you moved on and now you're working in a scale up, but now you're not the entrepreneur anymore. And so I wonder if I can pick on you on most people I talk to, not most, but it's very common to hear students when they talk about entrepreneurship. I ask, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Say, I want to be my own boss. So is it over glorified to be your own boss? What would young entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneurs should know about this idea of being your own boss? And is that something that you miss in your current role?
Yeah. So maybe just to quick recap, with Edgehog as the co-founder, I took on the role of CTO and then COO, responsible for all parts of the business operations and manufacturing and things like that. In my current role, I'm the director of applications and customer success, so developing different use cases for our products and also making sure that the customer get the knowledge transfer they need to succeed in designing their LiDAR products based on our semiconductor chip. So to me, there's no such thing as being our own boss in a scale up startup venture backed type of work. It may be very true for other arrangements, but in a venture capital, once we take funding, we're responsible to our board, we're responsible to shareholders, and ultimately that's a form of supervision and responsibility as well. So I just think of the nature of the scope of work as slightly different. So, as a founder type role, the responsibility is global, is to make sure to understand where are the gaps in the company such that we need to fill to make the entire company successful. So that could include fundraising. That's an obvious one to make sure that we can continue to build our work. It could be hiring. It could be business development. It could be technical execution. And in fact, Edgehog went through all of that. And once we identified that role as the founder, we are responsible for the outcome, meaning that we are responsible for assigning tasks or personally working on it to deliver the desirable outcome. Whereas in a director role that I'm in now in a scale up company with Lumotive, yes, I still have that mind on the global success of the company. However, in the execution, I am no longer responsible for all outcome of that of all those things that need to happen. For example, if I identify that marketing needs to have this, we need to start marketing this particular product in this particular way, then the responsibility isn't for me to execute for the outcome, is to raise the flag and communicate to the rest of the team on the importance for us to align. So it becomes a alignment and discussion rather than being responsible for the overall outcome. So it's just a nature of work that changes with different organization types. Everyone has bosses, no matter what kind of arrangement it is. So it's just what nature of responsibility, what nature of execution individuals are interested in. That's how I see it.
And it sounds like the way you explain the differences in the nature of being a co-founder of a startup, venture backed, and now being in director in a director role within a growing company. It sounds like you have, I guess the trade-off is that you have the freedom, quote unquote, to focus your attention in your directorship. Whereas before, as a founder, you don't have the luxury or you lack the
Yes.
freedom to focus your attention because
Yeah.
you have to see everything all the time. Is that a
Yes.
fair way?
Yeah, absolutely. A founder is a good founder is adaptive. It's a chameleon in figuring out what needs to be done and taking that on. When you have three people in the company, you don't have different job functions. Among the three people, you definitely do not have all the experience and expertise to do the task. So, and that's part of the fun is to be able to say, all right, now I need to do business development. I've never done that before. Hey, mentor, can you help me with that? And you have to take that on, and then maybe eventually you hire. The So you're always jumping from different nature of work in a weekly or monthly or longer time frame, but you're always changing. Your job is always changing. In a larger organization where the motive is around 75 people, there definitely exists most types of expertise within the organization. So yes, we definitely have the resources to identify the people who are best suited to execute, but also I get to specialize in certain tasks, like with customer engagement, to do deeply technical knowledge transfer, to think about the roadmap for how the customer is becoming successful. So I get to deep dive into the topics rather than putting out fires. So I get more time to sit back and think strategy and execution, being being more planned rather than reactive by necessity.
As you were talking about, that transition between your role in Edgehog and your role right now with Lumotive, I was again thinking about your background in biology. It sounds like a stem cell. you start like a stem cell that you have the capacity to specialize, but you don't have to. And over time you get responses from the environment, and you specialize, and then you're no
Yeah.
longer a stem cell. You're a
Yeah.
muscle, or a heart tissue, or brain cell or something.
And yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the fun part in the beginning when we're not completely specialized. To be a young entrepreneur means to have the opportunity to take on different roles and to bring on different skill sets. And through that, one can explore whether they're actually interested in that nature of work. And as they grow into business leaders, technical leaders, to have that global mindset to be able to think on all dimensions, business need, logistical need, engineering needs, to be able to act in that leadership role, having the context of the entire business. And I think it's a really powerful way for young entrepreneurs to gain that type of leadership experience.
So thinking back about your life in Edgehog compared to now, is what is there anything that you miss about being in that CTO, COO role that you don't get to do now? And not necessarily that it's a bad or good, but just saying that, oh, I used to do this, and I miss that.
Yeah. Uh, Perhaps, for example, in the fundraising world, for example, as the technical co-founder, I'm always part of those discussions to inspire investors, etc. In this execution role that I'm in now, that's less part of my responsibility, which again is the opportunity to actually do a good job within a specific area, but I don't get to jump around to all those different areas anymore. So not necessarily good or bad. It's just a very different in day-to-day nature of work. So there's some permanence to my scope of responsibility. Still have to jump within the customer success and applications role, but more narrowly defined.
Okay. And is there anything that you learned in this current role that you didn't know before? Or uh, maybe it's not a yes, no. It's like, what did you learn? Because I'm sure you learned something new in this role. Like what's something? Well, let's be more specific. What is something that surprised you about your current role that you didn't expect to learn in a director of application?
Yeah, so at Edgehog, we got to the step where we got the initial products into the market. So that was very exciting to have the impact from research lab prototype to being actually used in the field. And with Lumotive is the next phase of that. Is that we've already demonstrated the initial value in the field. Now it's a matter of scaling revenue. So how do we duplicate the initial success to all sorts of different customers to many different applications? So I think the really interesting part of the scaling venture is the privilege to have too much business. Lumotive has had funding from like Amazon is the latest investor into Lumotive, along with a lot of other interests as well. So the reason why it was very successful in raising funding is because we're now getting traction. So at some point, with a small-ish company, you cannot tackle all the business. So how do you become selective in choosing which customer will have the greatest strategic value for the company? Every customer have the capacity to create revenue, but they're not all created equal. Some require more effort from the company than others. So it's a balancing between company resources and expected profits. That's the driving motivation on how we operate. Whereas for earlier stage company, the motivation is always how do you demonstrate that early revenue in order to get to that next step. And Lumotive at that next step is where I'm having a lot of fun tackling a different sets of problems.
So if Edgehog would have jumped to that stage, you would have gotten there, but again, in a few years. So you're,
Exactly.
so
It's different stage of scale up of startups. In the very beginning, you have the prototype and business validation steps. So knocking on all the doors, trying to figure out whether there's a real business use case for it. So one of the early lessons is, hey, do you want, if I can promise you this piece of glass with this optical performance with 99.9% transmission, will you pay for it? The answer is, of course, yes. This is amazing. Never seen this before. We'll buy it. And then going to that understanding of like saying, yes, I'm interested versus yes, I will put money and engineering resources to make it happen. That's a huge gap. And then going from that to getting the products into deployment, how do you scale the products from making 100 units to 1 million units? Like, how do you go through that growth in logistics and the liability that comes with that? That's the different problem. And now with too many customers and too much demand for our time and attention, how do we pick and choose? Do we work with 10 out of 20? Do we work with 5 out of 30? Like, where do you draw the line? And do you just say no, or do you just defer the conversation to later on? And those are all the real-time decisions that have to be made.
so cool. It's really exciting to hear. Every time I talk to you, you're in a different phase, and it's just exciting for me to learn from what you're doing. Um, Anybody is curious to ask any question of Calvin? Oh, Barb, I see your hand went up really fast this time.
Yes, so love what you're saying. And so my question is going to be, what is the biggest gap right now in customer discovery use cases and success? What are you seeing out there?
What is the biggest gap in customer success in terms of what in my role on what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Uh, so with a fundamentally transformational technology, steering light without any mechanical parts is a fundamental change that can be applied to all sorts of things. Optical computing switching for LiDAR systems, for lensing, for you can imagine the world and how to digitally program light. So it's equivalent of going from analog to digital.
Yeah.
So the question is, where do we start? You cannot pitch too narrow because then investors might not get excited about that. You cannot pitch the world because there's no way to execute. So the balance always is, what is the large enough initial market that has a sizable enough opportunity that gets everyone excited, whereas within that field, there's not too much duplicate effort to attack that. So LiDAR is the answer to that. And even LiDAR is very broad, right? We can say like, okay, I've narrowed down from all the optics in the world to LiDAR systems. But within LiDAR, you get like a consumer electronics type, like Face ID type of LiDAR. You get the automotive, like very long range LiDAR. You get drones. You get industrial automation, like robots, like security monitoring. These are all very different products. And one of the interesting things about the LiDAR market is that there are different LiDAR products to apply for different range and different use cases. So one of the cool things that Lumotive is able to provide is that because it's programmable optics, because it's software-driven performance metrics, that we do have that flexibility to one hardware to tackle quite a few applications. So we can program it, set the integration time longer to achieve longer range. We can do a narrower field of view to like speed up the capturing time. So that gives us that flexibility. And we've decided that that's one of the strengths that we can offer, is instead of having a large variety of products, is to have a very few number of hardware, but able to use software to tackle the different use cases. And within that, we still need to work with manufacturers to make that happen. And one of the challenge, as you have mentioned, is the with any fundamental new technology, the company, us, Lumotive, is always going to be the expert, the deepest expert in how the system works. So how do we enable all the partners to step up in that same level of expertise to be able to bring this new technology to the market? And I think that's where the challenge is to identify the type of partners that have that same mindset as us, to see the opportunity, one sensor to attack many applications, and to use this software approach, which is fundamentally new software approach, to control the scanning parameters.
Thanks. Very interesting.
And I see that there's a question in the text. What are your insights on AI and Gen AI trends to impact VC investments, especially seed and Series A, for example, number of investments, check size, finding the right startup. So are you feeling the let's say what do you call it, the tectonic sheets are shifting around
Yeah.
in VC investment because of the AI and Gen AI world?
Firstly, I think there are a lot of incredibly smart VCs that will see through all of that and really evaluate the company and the founders. At the very early stage, seed and A, is all about the founders. So in the sense that, yes, you can have the best pitch. That's a starting point. That's a check mark. That's a prerequisite. But you have nothing proven yet until you get to Series B or C, where you have real revenue. It's black and white. You have this much revenue. So before that, it's all about believing in the entrepreneurs, knowing that they can pivot. So AI can help a lot with the pitch, help a lot with crafting that message. And I think all of that is really important. But ultimately, in my experience with early stage investment, is the people. And so I think that part wouldn't necessarily change too much. I think what has changed is the ability for us to craft better messages, to use AI to help ourselves be the best version of our communication. And I think that's the part that's really interesting. And just as we start to craft better edited messaging, I think on the other side, my theory is that the review of that might be a little bit more streamlined as well. So, but ultimately, the core of success is, do you have the right team in place to make it happen? Do you have the right mix of background and expertise? Do you have the right temperaments that the VCs are looking for in what they believe is needed to execute that particular business model? So I think that's the core of early stage success.
So it sounds like human nature is still human nature. We just have a different technology to facilitate that.
I believe so. I believe generative AI and at least in terms of crafting messages, crafting packages, is definitely a great editing tool and is a great idea generation tool. Ultimately, a big part of it, the overall messaging on what is it that we're trying to communicate, so far, a lot of that still comes from the individual. And that's where we can really shine in terms of who has the best ideas, who has the best ambition and temperament to make it happen.
Thank you. Anybody has any other question? We're getting close to the time. It's already 2:45. I don't know if anybody has other questions they want to ask Calvin. Especially if you're a student in the room and might be wondering, how can I be Calvin one day? No? Okay, so since I'm the educator in the room, how can I create more Calvins? What should we be doing more of? And maybe kind of not throwing you out into blue sky territory, but from a PhD perspective, right? There is a growing discussion of funding for research, and is the funding for research yielding a reasonable return on investment, and how many of the research is being commercialized or is actually leading to something that society feels is useful within their lifetime. And we both had the same PhD supervisor whose mantra was, "I want to see science to society in my lifetime." Um, and so, what do you think are the elements that PhD students in science, applied science, natural science could benefit more of to help them maybe be more ready for graduation, going into the workforce in a
Yeah.
trajectory similar to yours?
Yeah. Firstly, I think the majority of science engineering graduate students likely will not like the career path that I've taken. It is I have taken on more global leadership mindsets with a mix of business and technical skill set, but at the sacrifice of being a very deeply technical core expertise type of engineer scientist. So I think there's a ton of value in either gearing towards academia for fundamental research or even industry to become a technical independent contributor to become the best innovator, best scientist, best engineer possible. So for the subset that have that temperament interest in bridging that gap between technical and business, I think the main education talking point is being ready for opportunities. As a organization, UBCO, there are lots of opportunities with incubators, with startup support. Everything can be done better, but there's lots of opportunities out there for students. So it's a matter of saying yes to the relevant opportunities when they come along. Growing up, I never thought that I would start businesses to become technology commercialization person. Is when we met our PhD supervisor, that's when I said yes to taking this on. Her messaging resonated with me, and I wanted to work with her. I asked several times to work with her before the guest came along, and it's a matter of opportunities to come along. Are we ready to say yes? Are we recognizing the opportunity? So I think it's conversations like this to see that there's more career paths than taking and then becoming an engineer, becoming a professor. I think being aware of multiple career paths, that's when we can say, hey, this message, Calvin's message resonated. Let's have a conversation offline. And I think that's where we can think about how people can start to diverge into more unconventional career paths.
Okay. So now I have to ask you a follow-up question, and I don't expect you to speak on behalf of any industry in any time in the world, but from the industry you're part of,
Yes.
the generative AI movement has really appended the let's say the more historical trajectory of going from school to entry-level job to advanced level jobs, because so many entry-level jobs are essentially being displaced. I saw on LinkedIn literally last week, somebody showed a scale of S&P 500 companies. The valuation is keep growing up, but then when you look at job openings, ChatGPT went online and it's just going down, down, down for entry-level jobs. And so at some point, people will have to skip over these job entry-level jobs, or new entry-level jobs will be created instead. So we are in a time of flux. So my question to you is kind of thinking about, again, and you did, I thank you for being very honest and careful to say that your career path is not the only or even the majority or the best one for everybody. So thinking kind of in a system level, your industry, those who end up in the more entry-level traditional jobs of going through the expertise channel used to be the vast majority of jobs. That would be the path, the normal pathway. And those who went through the entrepreneurial or the unconventional was a rounding error for most part.
Mhm.
Are you seeing that ratio is shifting in a noticeable way? Or are we telling ourselves, are we over scared about the loss of entry level jobs, or is there something real that you're seeing that there is a rebalancing of the ratio of type of people coming into the workforce?
Yeah, I think economists who study this can speak at a statistical level of how that has changed. From a anecdotal level, uh, sure, positions change, but at the same time, personally, I see bringing on young students, interns, fresh graduates as a way to bring in talent. So one of what I love to do is to form academic collaborations. So sometimes to solve very immediate questions, but a lot of times to build that network for solving larger 5, 10 year horizon business opportunities. And while that has that goal, one of the nearer term impact is the opportunity to engage with students to get them involved, and through that is a recruitment pipeline as well for the company. So I don't think that that nature of work will disappear. Sure, the volume may change, and I don't have concrete evidence of that. But to me, finding the opportunity is about networking. It's about putting your hand up when something comes along. And I think that's the best thing for the student. There are still lots of entry opportunities available. It's about finding them, about finding the people who you resonate with, and joining that journey along the way.
Okay, thank you. And I was not expecting any more than anecdotal. Unless your pet peeve is doing all these economics level analysis on your spare time. Before I wrap up our conversation, I just want to give anybody a last chance of jumping in again with any question or comment. And industry academia collaboration is music to my ear. So yes, Mehdi.
Hello, Calvin. Sorry for joining late, but I missed some major part of your talk. I have a question for impact investments. So how do you see the impact investment in the future of the VC industry?
Sorry, can you clarify the question one more time? I heard most of that.
Impact investments or impact investors, they don't want to just focus on financial return. Also, they focus on social return or environmental return or other aspect.
Yeah. So you're saying how impact investors will impact how entrepreneurs raise funding. My thought is that it doesn't change your messaging. Ultimately, the company needs to be a sound business. So even for impact investment, the company cannot operate at a loss indefinitely. So how do you, at an idea phase, let's assume we're talking about seed Series A, how do you structure a business idea that has real grounding in how to get to financial health as soon as possible? So I think that part of the messaging is a given. The only part that changes a little bit is perhaps the scale of business, the outcome of the business, whether you're intending to sell the business or whether it's meant to be running operational. So I think those are some of the nuance. But the fundamental is, what is the business? What is a unique value proposition such that the customers are willing to engage with you or pay for the products? And how do you ensure the financial health of this business model? So I think those fundamentals, those business fundamentals, is the same no matter what kind of investor it is. And even when, let's say, the ratio of impact investor versus financial investors change over time, the fundamental question is still does this core group of founders have realistic understanding of their business model and have the ambition and a little bit of a dream to make this very challenging idea into reality.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think with that, I'm gonna pause it here. And before I thank you, Calvin, I just want to give a shout out to my next speaker. And so the next speaker I have is Ken Chow. He's the associate director and associate director at UBC School of Engineering. He's also associate professor in electrical engineering. And he's going to talk about the art of germination, growing ideas, people, and prosperity together with me. And for full disclosure, Ken is a good friend and a good colleague. We just had a meeting before today's conversation with Calvin, and we co-teach our capstone. So we always have great conversations. So we thought we'll have one in a Zoom setting for everybody else to join as well. So if you're interested, this will be December 2nd. So next time is going to be 4 weeks from now, because the one we initially planned for 2 weeks from now was canceled, unfortunately, last minute. So I will follow up on that. So hopefully everybody can join us, whether you're watching this in live or recording, equally, hopefully find it useful. Calvin, I'm really grateful that you took the time again to have a conversation. And I'll be in Vancouver hopefully next week. Not sure if we can meet, but maybe in a future time. But every time is a treasure that I love hearing your thoughts and learning from your experience and growing with you together. It's super fun.
Thank you, Alon, for having me, and thank you everyone for the participation. Appreciate it.
Okay. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Bye. Thanks a lot.